Welcome to FMA's 83rd Annual National Convention. I am FMA's National President, Craig Carter. Thank you all for attending today. While the ongoing pandemic has foreclosed the possibility of conducting this convention in person, the National Executive Board and national staff have done everything possible to replicate the experience virtually. We plan to follow the agenda, but please bear with us since we may get a little ahead or fall behind, just like when we meet in person. If you've not already done so, you can view and download convention materials at Download Central on the FMA National Convention page on our website at www.fedmanagers.org. You will also find outstanding training presentations there, and I encourage you to view them at your convenience. We will leave them on the website for the next several months to give you plenty of time to learn from these presenters who have generously shared their insights and talents with us. Now I'd like to ask FMA's National Secretary, Pauline Coleman-Sutton, to offer the invocation.
Thank you, Craig. If we could all take a minute to settle ourselves and close your eyes. Father of the universe, we stand before you once again with great thanksgiving and with deep and utter awe. We humbly ask for your wisdom and discernment as we conduct the business of this association and the 2021 virtual convention in support of all federal employees, especially managers and supervisors of this great nation. We pray that we honor you and each other daily, showing your joy, peace, love, unity, understanding, tolerance, compassion, trust, the truth, patience, kindness, respect, and that all these attributes permeate our every thought, and it reveals itself in our words, but most of all in our actions. Bless every FMA member and the persons on this call and their families. Continue to guide and protect us, keeping us safe and healthy. In your magnificent name we pray, amen.
Please rise for the national anthem and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. FMA National President Craig Carter will now recognize the members of the Executive Board.
I'd like to recognize our National Executive Board, Vice President Ron Greiga, our National Secretary Pauline Coleman-Sutton, our National Treasurer, Christine Parker, our Region 1 Director, Chris Lombardi, our Region 2 Director, Linda Lentjes, our Region 3 Director, Peggy Hatcher, and our Region 4 Director, Vince Stamper. I would also like to take a moment to recognize our national office staff, Executive Director Todd Wells, Government and Public Affairs Director Greg Stanford, Finance and Administration Manager Latoya Wilson, and Government Affairs and Communications Assistant Adam Kay. We will now hear from our keynote speakers, Pam Coleman, Office of Management and Budget Associate Director for Performance Management, and Dustin Brown, OMB Deputy Assistant Director for Management. Thank you, Pam and Dustin, for taking time to join us at the Federal Managers Association National Convention. Pam Coleman.
Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Thank you to everybody on the executive board. Thank you to the staff for inviting me and Dustin to join you today. And thank you to the entire membership, whether you are listening in or via Zoom. We understand that these are very challenging times communication-wise, and the fact that you are all coming together. I understand that last year's session had to be postponed, so I applaud that muscling through in these very challenging times, and thank you again for the invitation. I'd like to say also thank you for the invocation at the beginning of this session, which was very moving, and want to thank everybody for, on behalf of the country, in the service that you perform. So I know I have a short time with you today. I'm really very pleased that Dustin Brown, who is the Deputy Assistant Director, that I have had the privilege to serve alongside in just a short number of weeks after the administration switched over, but you'll have a chance to hear from him, and we're really looking forward to feedback that you all have about what our plans are as we look forward in this administration, starting with President Biden being sworn in on January 20th. So my remarks here are pretty simple, and the reason that I'm so passionate about the work that we're doing in the Office of Management and Budget, particularly in this role in this office, which is the Office of Performance and Personnel Management, for me, is about the personnel side. Of course, performance is really important. I believe that when you are in a place where the personnel, where your staff and your managers and your leadership are all aligned and moving in the same direction, from a position of trust, that more and better work gets done. So my very shorthand on what brought me to today is that I didn't come to public service in the way that probably many of you did and have served your careers in your moving through your roles. But I came to public service a little bit later in my life, and I think I became much more passionate about it as a consequence. So I came into the second term under President Obama from a personnel perspective, and got a chance to work for a year at the Department of Homeland Security. And in that experience, I really felt the depth of the commitment and the service that all the folks that I met from a career perspective were putting in and had done for their careers and would do long after our administration was over. And that deeply impressed me from a position of service. So in the last couple of years, in between the administration for President Obama and then for President Biden, for the last couple of years, I served as the director of the State Personnel Office out here in New Mexico, where I'm coming to you today. And that's the largest employer in New Mexico is the state of New Mexico. And so I had another opportunity to work alongside career staff, people who had dedicated their lives to service of their community and their neighbors and their towns and their state and their country in a way that I think it sometimes predates anybody else's twinkle in the eye as to what service is and will continue long after. And that the depth of that commitment from a service perspective really anchored in for me that this is the kind of work that I want to do moving forward and for the rest of my career and certainly for the rest of my life. And so having a chance to join the Office of Management and Budget at this juncture right now, at a time where thinking about trust in government and trust within government has taken a little bit of maybe a little bit of a back seat. I'd like to put that back in the front seat. I'd like to put trust and passionate commitment to service back in the front seat. And I know you, as the managers of a lot of folks all across the country, and I think it's really important to tell you, like, I understand what it's like not to be in the DC bubble. It's okay to be out in where the work's getting done. And it's so important where the work is getting done. And Dustin and I come to you today thinking about that, thinking about trust in our government and thinking about trust within our government, because oftentimes the only folks that anyone knows who works in government are you all, because they're your neighbor, or they go to church with you, or you coach their kids' little league team or their soccer team. And that element of the relationship between what government is and what the communities at large think it is really an interesting disconnect in many ways. So for what I'm coming to today is to say, I'm so passionately committed to thinking about you and thinking about your needs and thinking about the needs of you as you manage, and you as you are a public servant, and you as that you work in government, and how can we make that experience for you looking forward in every day that you go to work, and every day that you make decisions, and every day that you stand up on behalf of the service of your country. How do we make that experience a more trustworthy one for you? So I get up in the morning, I go to bed at night, and you could wake me up in the middle of the night and I'll start talking about this, because I want you to have the experience that is reflective of how much you contribute to what you do for this country in a way that is reflective. So I'm going to turn it over to Dustin, and then, I'm really curious just about what you think about trust in general. And if I know that you've got the chat boxes, and if you wouldn't mind either putting in some questions or just your thoughts in general about trust and the trust that we can help instill from the outside world looking into us here in government. Because at the end of the day, government and governing is about values and about the work that you do every day. And we want to make sure that people understand that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dustin for him to complete our remarks on our side, and then see if you have any questions for us. But I really appreciate so deeply the invitation and the ability and opportunity to serve among you for as long as I get a chance to. So I'll turn it over to Dustin. Thank you.
Great, thanks Pam, and thanks to Todd and Craig and the FMA team for assembling this. Really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. I'm not going to be able to say it much better than Pam just did in terms of where our focus is and why we're so passionate about this work. I've been at OMB for about 20 years now, and I've been in this position for the past 13, so across a few different administrations now, and just really enjoy the opportunity to work on things like the President's management agenda, the government's performance framework, what I like to think of as our bottom line. Our bottom line isn't profits or things like that, but it's outcomes and results. And it's wonderful to be working with such a committed federal workforce who understands that and who wake up every day committed to the work they do. I think the most recent Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey showed 97% of the workforce is willing to put in additional effort to get the job done, which says everything you need to know about the character and the resilience of the federal workforce. And obviously over the past year in particular, just seeing the heroic things that federal employees have done amidst COVID to ensure the mission continues is extraordinary. And whether that's continuing to go into the office because you don't have a job that enables you to telework, or dealing with kids at home maybe, and continuing to work all sorts of odd hours and deal with distractions, but still able to get the job done, says so much about the character of the federal workforce. And it's wonderful to have Pam and the entire team in and just say that. So bluntly and so directly. That is refreshing to say the least, and something I think we're really interested in moving forward as part of this administration's agenda. I think the main thing I'd love to kind of just maybe echo before we take your questions, which we really want to make sure we have some time for, is we are really committed to feedback and getting that feedback from the people that we're serving, our customers. That's not a term we often use in government, is customer. And that customer may look different depending on what mission area or agency you're in. But it's something that I think we're all very committed to better understanding who we're serving, what feedback do they have for us, and how we can use that to improve our operations. Similarly, I think the other key group is our own workforce. Obviously, we have things like the federal employee surveys that we do and other sources of feedback. But keeping that focus on the people we're serving and our own workforce, I think, is a big piece of what I'm really excited to continue to improve and use whatever tools we can to better understand at all levels of the organization, from the front lines to the senior most levels. And in particular, things that we can measure that give us some good feedback that can be used both at the leadership and the front lines and middle management is where I've seen progress really take off. So I'm always interested if people have thoughts in particular on key things we should be emphasizing and prioritizing among leadership that can empower people throughout the organization to get the job done and stay focused on our mission, which can be difficult at times, given we have plenty of distractions that can make it challenging to stay focused on the mission and results. So anything you have for us along those lines, I think, are particularly helpful as we work to engage with leadership across the White House and federal agencies, as well as outside stakeholders, in crafting something that's going to work for everybody in the coming years. So let me pause there. And yeah, like I said, we would really be interested in any questions or feedback or thoughts you might have for us.
Okay, thank you, Pam and Dustin, for that. We do have a few questions starting to come in. One comment I'll just start with that's right to the point. He says, without accountability, there is no trust. So I'll agree on that front there. Let's see. Next one, as frontline managers, how can we be heard at the earlier stages of planning with the president's agenda? If we can help shape new policies or approaches, we can do a better job of successfully implementing a plan among our employees. So I guess it just goes to wanting to have a little, a chance to weigh in earlier sometimes than we have sometimes in the past, because we're the ones on the front lines implementing these.
So I'll speak first, and I'll turn it over to Dustin. So one of the really good things about someone who's new in their position, like me, is that I just think we should just do things that are logical. And I don't get bogged down necessarily by what has been done in the past. And we're able to think about, so that kind of question about, well, if I'm the person on the front line, if I'm here and I have to be the one that has the measurement that is going to go upstream, that will be factored into how my agency is then, whether that's DOD or DOT or whomever, how they're being measured. Wouldn't it be great if I had some say in it? So from a stakeholder, like stakeholders, that's just the stakeholder engagement of who should be involved. This is a really important piece for us. And we've talked about if you're going to tell people this is what your measure is, and they haven't had an opportunity to weigh in on it, and is a disconnect between what they do or how they think of their work or how they don't see how it wraps up into the larger frame, then what good is it? So the communication structure of talking to frontline managers, talking to mid-level managers, talking to the folks who are crunching the numbers, all of that is really important to us. And I'll turn it to Dustin, because I know that there have been opportunities and in order to talk to employees in a lot of different ways. And whether that, of course, we've got over 60% of the workforce is, covered by a bargaining unit. And so that's a way, okay, but when you're looking at managers, that's different than looking at the frontline folks who are covered by a bargaining unit. So I think it's a really excellent question, and one that for me is like a no-brainer, and it's a question of execution, right? So for me, I think about there's 2 million people in the federal workforce. So I live in a state where there's only 2 million people. So for me, 2 million people is like, if I need to talk to New Mexico, I can figure out a way to talk to New Mexico. I can figure out a way to get a message to every New Mexican. I can figure out a way. I think the same is true thinking about the federal workforce in a similar way. It's not that we've got this, it's gigantic, it's all over the place. Like, yes, it's true. It's big. It's the biggest employer. It's all over the place, but it's still only 2 million people. I mean, if you grew up in any metropolitan area, it pales in comparison. And I grew up in a very small town, so it seems like a lot of people. But having lived in New Mexico for the last number of years, I know that it's a manageable amount, especially when you can look at groups like the Federal Managers Association, and you can look at opportunities where there are people who are together who represent a certain segment of the federal workforce. And so I'll turn it over to Dustin. But that's an excellent question. Thank you to whoever asked that question.
Yeah, I certainly agree. It's a great question. I guess my advice would be, I think it is hard often for one individual to be able to have their voice heard amidst the multiple management layers that we do have. And we have a lot of management layers. I think they once counted there are 17 management layers between the Secretary of VA and a nurse in a VA hospital. So it is not easy, right? I think my advice would be to do as much as you can to form a bit of an informal network. I think it's one thing if one individual tries to raise issues. I think often if you're seeing an issue or would like to get engaged, it's very likely there's somebody else who's in a somewhat similar position, maybe not in your same location, and using kind of networks to be able to reach out to others who may be also interested in engaging early or have a specific pain point that you've experienced you'd like to identify. If multiple people come together and raise an issue through their leadership ranks, I think it usually gets a lot more attention than if it's just an individual voice. So I'd kind of suggest reaching out to peers, and obviously organizations like FMA are great places to do that. There are federal executive boards out there that are great places to do that. There are a lot of, I think, different opportunities in this day and age, especially to connect with others. And I think we need to figure out how to leverage those tools better so that we can kind of hear a little more bottoms up than maybe we're traditionally, because the opportunities are there technologically to do that like never before. And I think we need to figure out ways to leverage that. We need to do a better job of that, obviously, in Washington, but I also think it's great when those types of things can start from the bottoms up a bit.
The next question kind of plays along with what we're started to talk about. It says, agencies continue to have their budgets cut limited. I'm curious how OMB envisions keeping employee morale high, employees empowered, if we are expected to do more with continuously fewer resources. I know that's a tough one, but it's a good, we would all like to know the answer on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably very clear that I believe that government it performs a service that no one else wants to perform, right? Like if Google could make money on the government, like doing government, it would do government. And so because our government and governing is our values in action, from our perspective, while there's been a steady, and it's like over the course of probably most of our lifetimes, for those of us on the phone today, a steady drumbeat of that government should always be smaller, smaller, smaller.
Oh, did Pam freeze? If so, I can assist.
Yeah, Dustin, go ahead. It looks like she's trying to make a comeback, but
oh, there she is. She's back.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I got ditched out right there. That there's been like a concerted, kind of steady drumbeat that government should be smaller and that we should make do with less. And I look, over my shoulder, you could see like, this is there intentionally. Right? This is like the first time that man laid eyes on Earth going around the moon. And like the aspirational and inspirational nature of what government can do is such that if you continue to do like more with less, or continue to have expectations that more can be done with less, you're going to get less over time, because people are having to do the work, and it's there's only so much you can do. So, you know, I know that the budget is where it all comes down, and I think that there are as the budget makes itself through the cycle, and and Dustin can speak with with expertise about that. You know, we are keeping an eye on what's the employee, what's their experience around this, what's their morale around this. I mean, the first thing that we can possibly do is to respect and empower the workforce and to protect the workforce in a way that hasn't happened in the last couple of years. But at the same time, your point, whoever asked it is really well taken, because, you know, if you're said like, hey, we respect you, but now you only have 5 guys on a job instead of 9, then that's really rough to be a manager and have expectations. So I think to Dustin's point earlier about, you know, us talking, meaning OMB and the agencies talking to, from a budget perspective, and then, you know, it goes back to Congress. It's what we ask for and that what Congress appropriates. But I think we have to, you know, really be honest about our assessment as to what can happen with the amount of budget that gets rolled down. But I'm going to turn it to Dustin for more of his expertise.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. I couldn't agree more with those sentiments. And maybe I'll just add a couple things. We certainly see that budget levels are tight, and but we also know that they're not tight everywhere, right? It is a lot of times the kind of administrative costs, whether that's training or amounts for workforce development, or even just number of FTEs, can be the places constrained where program dollars, you know, that get distributed out, you know, maybe are a little bit less likely to be reduced. Yet the number of people administering them has gone down. We have some really interesting charts. If you haven't seen the analytical perspectives chapter of the president's budget, there's a section on the federal workforce, and we just have these amazing charts showing, you know, how the budget has changed over time and how the number of federal employees basically is the same as it was in 1960, right? And that really, I think, says a lot about kind of the continual push to ask people to do more with less, which I think we should acknowledge. I also think it's not just the level, though. It's the predictability, right? And we have a budget process that hasn't delivered an on-time budget for one time in the last 30 years or something like that. And I think that also is just stressful, is not knowing, right? And I think it's important to acknowledge that in addition to the critiques around the levels. I know I keep coming back to the federal employee viewpoints, but I do think there is a question on there about, do you have sufficient resources to do the job? And I think while that's not you know, really high marks, it's actually not awful. I mean, it isn't it isn't the thing that jumps out at you the most from the survey. You know, things like, do managers support collaboration across work units to achieve a common mission, are things that jump out at me, as only about half of the federal workforce agrees with that. Right. And that is something that I do think can be, you can attribute to the kind of siloed nature of the budget process, and how people are kind of incentivized and focus on a program implementation and not really on the outcomes and objectives that would encourage us to work across organizational lines, maybe a little bit more than we do. So budget is definitely a concern, but I think there's a lot of other things that we should be looking at too, in terms of making sure people are feeling empowered to do what we all want to do, which is achieve the mission.
Thank you. We got time for a couple more questions. And one I just got, it's a tough one. What does normal look like when we get back to it? I'm really starting to think that what was normal is not going to be normal when we get back to normal. I know it's stressful for everyone, but certainly for federal managers, it's hard to figure out just what we should be preparing for. Any insights?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. And you know, like whatever was considered normal, like, you know, a year ago, and it's like right now, right? It was like a year and a week ago when everything really changed around the world. So, you know, there's some benefits. People, there was never a thought that anybody, whether it's the federal workforce, state workforces, could go like on a maximum telework environment as quickly as we did. So, and of course, like many of you could not, that's just not the nature of your job. So I totally understand that. But we have gone to this place where no one ever thought we could get so quickly. And there were some benefits that came out of it for many people and many jobs. And then it's not so much for other people and other types of employees, other types of jobs, but there's probably a mix. And as the new normal, whatever that new normal is, as we move forward, it will be that there's some kind of hybrid model to expect that we're going to snap back to do what we did previously when we've learned so much about what works and what doesn't work. That's what we're all like, that's what we're all really, just wrapping our brains around as much as our arms around. So, and it's happening as you all know, it's happening in the public sector, it's happening in the private sector. There's so much talk about what will happen with, with real estate. Broadband has expanded. Who is really productive, who's not? Are people more productive just because they're in front of their computers longer? You have schools that will reopen, so productivity that might have been a little sketchy might be back on track because now the kids will go back to school. So there's so many different inputs that will come into whatever this new normal is. But I will assure you that there's a lot of discussion and conversation around this, and not just, and this is a place where, for those of you who, well, everybody will receive the mission support survey that will go out, I think on the 15th, and it will stay open until April 6th. And there are a number of telework questions in there. So we strongly encourage you, please, to respond to those questions so that we can collect more data points, because we can have a thought about what it looks like. People can have a thought about their particular office and their particular region and their particular kind of job. But really pulling in all that information together will help us inform what that next new normal is. And I think we should expect that nobody, because we've never done this before, right? Unless even when you were living 100 years ago during the last of these crazy pandemics, we are in a different technological profile right now, and a different government profile. So I think we should think of this as like a work in progress to think about what is going to work. What works for some places, some agencies, some employees, what doesn't work, and then to take that constant feedback in order to make even better decision-making moving forward, and not just to come down with some it will be like this, and then ignore all the inputs on the back end, which no one has ever lived through before until we get there.
We got one more for you. It's, what do you see is the biggest issue facing federal workers?
You ended with an easy one.
I know. Well, I'll cut it off in a minute or two. If you...
I'm kidding.
I mean, my theory of having worked among and with public servants is that it would certainly be a much easier place to work if the level of trust and respect that you deserve, that you were getting. I know that I'm able to do, kind of gut through a lot of things that are maybe a little less, that are more challenging, when I know that I'm respected, when I know that I can take pride in my work, when I know that others are not gonna, that I can hold my head up and not have someone bang on me all the time. I think that, it's really important for us to say from the administration's perspective, that the president sees you, he trusts you, he respects you. He wants a federal workforce that is integrated in a way with the political leadership that is, we're on the same team moving forward together. I think that that kind of just trust and pride, which I know you have with your teams, and I know that you have with your colleagues, but to me, if we could make that, the experience of the federal workforce is one of not having to play defense and be in a crouch. I think that could all together. I mean, I think all together, if we're all feeling that kind of, agency around our work and around what we do and know what we do, I think that could cut through a lot of the extra stress of being in the federal workforce. And I'll turn it to Dustin because his experience is so vast.
I think one of the things we've always struggled with is telling our story, right? And I'm just thrilled to have Pam on board in particular, because she is going to be such an advocate, as you can see, for telling our story. And it's been a while since we've really had, I think, leadership is committed to that, as I'm seeing right now. So I'm thrilled about that. And we want to find ways to get those stories out to the public better than we've done before. We do run a performance.gov platform, which I think has a lot of potential there, and welcome thoughts on ways we can continue to strengthen that and other ways of getting that out there. I think probably the biggest concern I see is the federal hiring process. I think we've really struggled to have it work for our managers and our employees, as evidenced by like what the 50 or 60% of a job search that go without a hire. Something's not quite working there. And in particular, the demographic under 30 has dropped from about 10% of the workforce to now 6% of the workforce. And our federal internship program has been reduced by about 80 or 90% from where it was at one point. So I think we do really need to redouble our efforts to get out there and recruit and bring in people in school and making sure that we continue to have that pipeline strong, so that we are engaging the next generation of civil servants. And so we are hard at work and focused on that. We know there are some things we need to do with OPM and our colleagues there to make it easier for people. But we also need to very quickly, I think, reestablish relationships with colleges and universities and get the pipeline back up. Some of you may know I did a brief sabbatical stint with the Volcker Alliance, and there's some government to university efforts that came out of that work to get federal, state, local, and universities working better together. It's a good example of a network that I think is going to be critical if we're going to really lean into recruiting and finding ways to engage maybe with different partners than we have historically. So I think we're real committed to that going forward, and welcome ideas on the best way to do it.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Associate Director Coleman, I know you've only been on the job about a month now, and really appreciate you getting to speak to our members so early in your tenure. We look forward to working with you. I can tell you've got some passion for your work. Assistant Director Brown, it's been a pleasure to work with you over the years, and let us know how FMA can implement some of these things. We can reach out to our people directly, in addition to the things that go out to all employees. But thank you very much, both of you, for taking the time to talk with us and tell us your plans about the work at Office of Management and Budget. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, everybody. And thank you all for your service, because no one's ever going to thank you enough, ever. So thank you. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
We look forward to working with you too. Thank you. We'll now take a 5-minute break.
Retirement is on the horizon. You're almost there, but ask yourself a question. Do I have enough money to retire? And how much will I need to maintain my lifestyle? Do I know all the benefits available to me? What about my health and life insurance options? What if I wanted to work again? Here at GPIS Employee Benefits Specialists, we have the knowledge, experience, and tools to help answer these questions. We offer free consultation, which includes a complete breakdown of your federal benefits now and what your benefits will be in retirement. We can show you how to maximize your retirement income with safety, security, and growth opportunity. Please contact us and make your road to retirement truly the golden years.
In today's world, planning is essential. People are living longer and need a long-range care plan that can sustain them throughout their lifetime. The Federal Long-Term Care Insurance Program, or FLTCIP, can help. With benefits designed specifically for the federal family, the FLTCIP can help protect your savings and assets in the event you or your loved ones ever need long-term care. The FLTCIP helps pay for long-term care services in a variety of settings with your choice of caregiver. The FLTCIP is available to eligible federal and U.S. Postal Service employees and annuitants, active and retired uniformed service members, and certain qualified relatives. Visit LTCFeds.com for the full eligibility listing. The FLTCIP is a medically underwritten benefit. Certain medical conditions or combinations of conditions will prevent some people from being approved for coverage. To learn more about the FLTCIP, visit LTCFeds.com or call us to speak to a program consultant.
Hi, I'm Tony Vernetti, the president and founder of Feds Protection. We are so honored to be part of the 83rd Annual FMA Convention. While it's different this year, we are very excited about the unique opportunity for every member to walk away with an understanding of what we do and why FMA chooses to work so closely with us to protect you. You've all heard about professional liability insurance, and you most certainly are aware that your agency pays for half of the cost of the insurance. Our training presentation will explain how scrutiny, demands of accountability, politics, special interest groups, social media, and news sensationalism have led to scapegoating and a scandal phenomena affecting everyday federal managers. You will leave with an understanding and an appreciation of how and when your professional liability insurance policy will protect you. Thank you again, FMA, for including us in your conference and for our continued partnership in protecting your members for well over a decade.
At American Public University, we believe everyone should have access to a great education. It's not a privilege reserved for the few. We believe in our students. We've seen the impact of nearly 100,000 graduates, and we believe higher education must be more affordable. Because when more doors open, more lives change. American Public University. Online classes start every month.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you again to Pam Coleman and Dustin Brown from the Office of Management and Budget for taking time out of their busy schedules to speak with us. Now I would like to turn things over to FMA-PAC Chair Pauline Coleman-Sutton to speak about FMA-PAC's ongoing work and drawing. Pauline, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Craig. Anybody who knows me, I not only am I your PAC chair, I'm the national secretary, but anybody who knows me knows I get really excited talking about PAC. What's wonderful about this is a way that we all can join forces and partner together to really make an effective outcome. For you, those of you who don't know it, PAC is one of the key ways that FMA influences policy on Capitol Hill. The money that we raise through our PAC allows us to make contributions to friendly politicians on both sides of the aisle, helping us to secure important meetings and most of all, to support critical bills that are important to federal employees. Without FMA-PAC, FMA would be far less effective as a force of achieving political wins. Each year during the national convention, we hold a raffle drawing and you can purchase tickets. Well, this year is unique in that the drawing was completely online. And you guys have been supportive, but I'm still looking for, I always say during the convention, I have a number in mind. Well, I have one and we haven't quite reached it yet. So I'm asking you to go out to our site and I'll talk about that a little bit. But before I talk about that, I really need to thank the support team. First of all, our national office, Greg Stanford and Adam Kay they just work like crazy, supporting PAC and everything that goes along with it. And quite frankly, just making me look good and making it look easy as the PAC chair. But more than that, and also LaToya and Todd as well, thank you so much. But I really have to give out a special clap or praise to my fellow board members, the regional directors, because where we have our raffle right now is $25. You get 10 entries into the drawing. And, you know, that's great. We have 3 cash prizes, $500, our grand prize, $250, and then $100. But really what excites me beyond the money, of course, the money excites me, but I love the regional prizes that are donated by our local chapters. And that's where my fellow board members are they're so supportive of this. All the way to the Pacific Northwest, we have Vince Stamper, who always supports, and they have some really special things. You know, they have some really, the salmon is what I'm looking for, but they have a lot of prizes that they donated. And then all the way down to the great state of Texas, Peggy Hatcher and her group, her chapters, they have donated some smoke items like you wouldn't believe. And then we go over to Florida. Linda's always so supportive, and they have a number of prizes for us too, very desirable prizes in the way of Visa cash cards. And then Chris, the Northeast, they have donated some lobster dinners, and quite frankly, they always, all of them, all 4 regional directors and their chapters always support PAC. And this is what we need, because using that, we can get into meetings and talk to people. We can tell those anecdotal stories about what's happening in that state, how this bill truly affects us. And so that's I can't tell you enough about the regional prizes, but in order to win them, you have got to play the game. So anyway, if you go out to our website and to donate at gorallyup.com/FMA, you don't have to worry about taking all that. We're going to send out another email with the link that will, it'll go to your email address, your non-government email address, and we encourage you all, please donate, and donate strongly like you have in the past. We really appreciate that. Again, that's a $500 grand prize, second prize of $250, and a $100 third prize, but we have a lot of regional prizes. Now, at the end of the convention, I'll announce the winners for the prizes 1 through 3, but you'll be contacted directly for the regional prizes, and they'll be mailed directly to you. So again, the best way to support FMA-PAC, we want you to participate in the raffle, and we really encourage that. But if you go with payroll deduction, that is one of the easiest way to do it, and you don't even have to worry about it. Boom, it's done. It helps us with trying to figure out how much money we have in our budget, how much we can give out. I mean, what we're going to be working with. But if you can't do it that way, we take checks, we take all kinds of things. But if you go out to the raffle, that'll still be going until tomorrow, just before the end of the convention. So you have plenty of time to go out there and buy some raffle tickets, and good luck to you all. And I really appreciate it all over again, but I urge you to donate to support FMA's good work on Capitol Hill. And remember, I still have my eye on the number and I'm looking forward to reaching it. Todd, over to you.
Thank you, Pauline. We really appreciate all the hard work you put in on behalf of FMA-PAC. It's fun to work with you on it, and you know how to motivate us. We appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our corporate partners and thank them for their support of the Federal Managers Association. GPIS, Employee Benefit Specialists, Blue Cross Blue Shield Federal Employee Program, Long-Term Care Partners, the American Public University System, FEDS, Federal Employee Defense Services, and American Hearing Benefits have all stood by the Federal Managers Association, and we are very grateful for their support. Without their assistance, membership dues would be higher, and we would not benefit from their many offerings and insights. We look forward to seeing them in person next year at our convention and continuing to work with each of them. At this time, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Joan Melanson, Director of Education and Outreach at FedPoint, the administrator of the Federal Long-Term Care Insurance Program and BENEFEDS, the website for enrolling in federal dental and vision plans. Joan has been a good friend to federal employees for a long time, certainly to the Federal Managers Association, and I would not like doing my job as much as I do if she were not part of that. So Joan, thanks so much for joining us, and I will turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Todd. Good afternoon, everybody, and hello from north of Boston. It's lobster country, as they say. It's a pleasure to participate in your annual FMA conference, albeit virtual this year. But we always have participated way back to 2002 with the inception of the Federal Long-Term Care Insurance Program, the FLTCIP back then. There have been so many changes since 2002, and look where we are now. I mean, there's no way we would have predicted quarantining, that we would have thought we'd be wearing masks, and that we'd be doing Zoom meetings. Not only did we not think we'd be doing these things, could we have imagined it would be a year? And we continue to do that. But we are now all IT proficient just for survival. First, I'd like to commend Craig Carter and Todd Wells and his entire staff and everyone else for holding a virtual conference. You know, we at FedPoint, it was originally Long-Term Care Partners, that's our legal name. We work with over 36 affinity groups, but I have to say you're my most favorite. But very few have made the step to a virtual conference. So I really have to commend you for taking that step. It's not the same as being together, certainly, but it's better than not connecting at all. And secondly, I'd like to commend all of you for holding your agencies together, continuing your hard work and dedication through very difficult and challenging times as you work through a pandemic without any tested roadmap. So congratulations to you all. It hasn't been easy. So, and it's not only the hard work of doing your work, you have to balance family and health issues. That's a lot. Now, health issues is a nice segue into the update I'd like to give you about the Federal Long-Term Care Insurance Program, or what we refer to as the FLTCIP, because we have to have an acronym for it. With COVID, health issues have come into the forefront as families have experienced the pandemic, the toll the pandemic has taken, particularly on our seniors, but on everyone. With more time to think about the importance of family and loved ones, we are seeing a resurgence in the interest in long-term care issues. Now, the FLTCIP has been a particular interest to a lot of people because of its very strong and comprehensive home health care program. How many of you are or have been in a position to not see your family members or friends due to COVID restrictions? There are so many of these heartbreaking stories where we hear about residents who are confined to their rooms, and with Alzheimer's in particular, it can be very disconcerting. But just so you know, the FLTCIP is now paying less than 8% of its claims to nursing homes. Claims in home health care have been rising. We're seeing a trend. We've seen it over time as home health care has become more popular, and that's where the FLTCIP really shines. Personal experiences and news in the press have helped trigger an increase in the FLTCIP website traffic and in our webinar participation, which has tripled. Our virtual benefits fair in the fall solved the issue of the cancellation of health fairs in federal agencies during open season. Fortuitously, we had developed a strong digital platform and presence pre-COVID. So we expanded digital in lieu of in-person events, just like we're doing today. Correspondingly, the FLTCIP applications have increased. Long-term care seems to be on people's radar screens these days. I'm certain about one thing, and that is that life will not return back to the same normalcy we experienced over a year ago. And I was very interested when Associate Director Coleman mentioned the new normalcy, because we're all struggling with new normalcy. What is that? We will adapt to changes, some that will even contribute to a better life. We will all continue to age, I can be sure of that, unfortunately. And with that comes long-term care issues for you or someone in your family. I am merely suggesting you take the time to make a plan for long-term care for your family. Long-term care insurance is not for anyone. It's not for everybody, and it's not, and the FLTCIP isn't for everybody. But educate yourselves with our educational website and its tools, including our webinar program and the new guided planner tool. This is good just for planning purposes to become an informed consumer. Our website is ltcfeds.com. If you'd like personalized experience, call, or you want to work with a consultant, call our 1-800 number. It's 1-800-LTC-FEDS. And our resources will assist you in making an informed decision in developing a long-term care plan, which is not merely only for you, but it's a family decision as everyone is impacted. On that uplifting note, I'd like to wish you all a very successful conference. I look forward to seeing all of you in person next year. Next year's conference will be particularly special. You didn't have one last year. We have a virtual one this year. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest there. Until then, I wish all of you the best of health and happiness. Thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you, Joan. We truly appreciate the support you and long-term care partners provide to the Federal Managers Association. We will now hear from our region directors, Chris Lombardi of Region 1, Linda Lentjes of Region 2, Peggy Hatcher of Region 3, and Ben Stamper of Region 4. Chris Lombardi is the Director of Region 1 and Vice President of FMA Chapter 6. Chris, the floor is yours.
How you doing? Chris Lombardi, Region 1 Director. I know we all have had a tough time with COVID and trying to stay in touch with everybody, have local meetings, chapter meetings, even our regional meetings. We're working through that, trying to get through to getting everything together and back to normal. And I'd like to say, let's hope this year brings a better year and get us back to normal. I'd like to introduce now Linda from Region 2 Director. Linda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for attending the convention. We appreciate your time this afternoon. And thank you to the National Office staff for all the hard work to pull this together. You've done an outstanding job. This is fantastic. For Region 2, I would like to announce the results of our elections for 2021. The positions up for re-election this year were Director and Secretary. I'm honored to say that I will continue as a Region 2 Director, and Sue Thatch will continue as a Region 2 Secretary. Sue and I both thank our Region 2 members for their trust and support. But for both Sue and I, this will be our last term in these positions. As Chris said, you know, we've had a difficult time this last 12 months. It's been incredibly challenging as we've all struggled to keep our members engaged. and informed under the constraints of COVID-19. Our Region 2 chapters took advantage of emails, teleconferences, and virtual meetings to keep in contact with their members. They also worked hard to ensure they continued to support their local communities, especially in a time when much help was needed. Just to highlight a few accomplishments, our Chapter 3, Norfolk Naval Shipyard. They participated in the Clean the Bay Day and Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. These are events they do annually. They partnered with other shipyard associations, the Naval Civilian Association and Superintendents Association, to provide a luncheon for first responders, the firefighters and base security, and the shipyard custodial services. They continue to support their local organizations such as the Southeastern Virginia Food Bank, OASIS, an organization that provides meals to people in need, and HER, which is a shelter for women, through monetary donations. Chapter 21 in Cherry Point, North Carolina, supported their local community through donations to local food banks. Our chapters continued grassroots efforts through conference calls with congressional representatives. Chapter 3 held calls with Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, Congresswoman Elaine Luria, and Congressman Donald McEachin. Chapter 21 met with North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis. Chapters 11 and 396 here in Jacksonville, Florida, teamed up for calls with Congressman John Rutherford, Florida's 4th District, Congressman Ted Yoho, 3rd District, and the Office of Senator Marco Rubio. We spoke personally with Congressman Rutherford for about 45 minutes. One significant success from that conversation was Congressman Rutherford's agreeing to co-sponsor HR 6733, the Federal Frontline Worker Leave Protection Act, which until that time had remained partisan. These are just a couple of examples of efforts that our members made during this challenging time to continue to make a difference. I want to say thank you to all of our FMA members for everything that they do and their continued support of FMA. Now I would like to introduce our Region 3 Director, Peggy Hatcher. Peggy is also the President of FMA Chapter 125. Peggy, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, this is Peggy Hatcher. I am the Region 3 Director. Our chapters are spread across about 4 to 5 time zones. I've got chapters in California, Hawaii, Oklahoma, Utah, Texas, Idaho, Illinois, and Ohio. And with that said, to add to our time zone hurdle, we have COVID. So I am very proud of our chapters. We've given away scholarships, 1K from 252. We gave $4,000 from Chapter 125. Chapter 252 and Fort Bliss, they had an annual shoe drive. So even with all of the new normalcy, we continue to advocate public service. In Chapter 170, we've been very innovative with passing and through email newsletters and keeping in touch. We had a Region 3 conference using MS Teams. Some folks are not used to that type of communication, so it was good. I had to learn the MS Teams versus Zoom versus the other forms of communication. But we are trying. We are open. We talk to each other, try to figure out like how do we communicate, how do we continue doing what we want to keep doing. But training has been a struggle, but we are still, we send out emails, that form of communication. I want to also state that I'm glad that everyone is here. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next year. So this is a great tool, a great form of communication, a great form for our new national convention. And hopefully, I would like to see this format as an option to face-to-face as well. With that said, I would like to introduce Mr. Vince Stamper. He's the Director of Region 4, and he is also a member of FMA Chapter 14. Vince, the floor is yours.
Vincent, sorry, this is Todd. You need to unmute yourself, sir.
So I was going to highlight how we've overcome all these challenges and learned new technological things. And now I just proved that maybe I'm not as proficient as I'd like to think I am. But with that said, I'd like everybody to kind of think back to where you were last January when we first started to see where this new normal was going. I personally was on a trip out to Hawaii. I actually caught COVID there. So that's a whole nother story. But, you know, all of us have had a lot of struggles over the last year, and it's been a big paradigm shift for us. You know, we certainly were having issues in our region and as an organization before. You know, there's no magical pill that's going to make all that go away. It's not going to go poof and disappear. But with persistence, optimism, and flexibility, we can certainly make a lot of those things, solve a lot of those problems. So I wanted to share a few things like my other directors have shared. Even before the pandemic hit, we had one chapter that had a long-standing relationship with their command, and all of a sudden they found themselves in a situation where the command was not going to renew their memorandum of agreement with them. And they were very seriously thinking about folding. And yet we had people that stood up. I'm not going to call them out because I don't want to out them in their struggles, but we had some really good leadership that stood up and got that chapter functioning again. We've also had, you know, as the OMB people mentioned, and as some of the questions kind of pointed out, you know, we've had many decades of having to do more with less, and you know, heightened security is making it difficult for some of our regional leadership to connect with our members and to go out and network and connect with their peers. There's a lot of challenges there. We've also lost some very selfless leaders over the last year, you know, as in any year. But I'd like to take a moment just to remember some of the people that we've lost over this last year. Okay, and you know, with that, you know, there is a lot of hope. We've implemented solutions that a year ago wouldn't have seemed possible. You know, I've seen things happen in my command. You know, there was no cameras allowed within Trident Refit Facility Bangor, and yet here we are a year later, and it's become a regular thing. We've discovered that we can really overcome a lot of the barriers that we thought were there in place. When I had taken most of the month of February and March to recover from catching the virus, one of the first things I had to do when I came back to the workplace was to get my entire team on telework. I'm sure that many people have similar stories about that. I'm also very proud of what Chapter 14 has done to pivot with this. We had to discontinue dinners, obviously, because of restrictions, but we have a long-standing partnership with our local Alps, and that gave us a opportunity. They have a large covered drive-through, and so we did a couple of food drives, and using that covered area, and we were able to do that with social distancing and masks, and in an outdoor area with plenty of airflow. And through that, we raised, we did $7,500 in outreach to local food banks and community groups. We added 3 additional scholarships totaling $10,500, and we filled up 8 truckloads of food for local food banks through those drives, and 1,000-pound, which was over 1,000 pounds of food, and 3 truckloads of toys for Tots. So I really appreciate the leadership within Chapter 14 and other chapters that have shared similar type stories in pivoting and making the most out of the situation, and recognizing that our communities around us are really struggling right now, and stepping up to help fill that void. Since we're not in DC this year, the other thing that we're doing, and I would encourage other chapters to do also, is we're looking into visiting our congressional delegation in their local offices, coordinating those visits, since we're not going to be able to see them in DC this year. So I think that's another option, especially now that more and more people have access to the vaccinations, but we're not quite ready to take some of the risks associated with travel. So in summary, our problems are not going to go poof and disappear, but by practicing poof, we will solve them. Persistence, optimism, objectivity, and flexibility. We all know, as civil servants, to know about persistence, that we all have had to get, without it, would have given up long ago. Optimism, because we all believe in the mission of our organizations, and that through them we can protect and further our way of life and strengthen our nation. Objectivity, because we can't take it personal. We must put our feelings on hold, look at the facts, and look for solutions. And finally, flexibility, because we must adapt to our new reality and pivot. And thank you for your time. And with that, I'll hand it over.
All right, thank you, Vince. We're going to go back to Chris Lombardi from Region 1. He has an important announcement that he forgot in his report. Chris?
So I forgot to say it when I did my update. With the hard times going on right now, we haven't been able to really, a lot of people work from home. A lot of people have been not having their meetings. So me as the Region 1 director, and Craig knows how competitive I can be, especially with Chapter 3. I'd like to throw out the challenge to the 3 other region directors. So this time next year, the challenge is what region can get more members to join this year. So I know Region 2 will definitely accept, so I hope you all accept. Challenge on. Craig, it's your floor.
All right, thank you, Chris. All right, we will now hear from our national officers for their reports. We will hear from National Secretary Pauline Coleman-Sutton, National Treasurer Christine Parker, Vice President Ron Graga, and then myself, whose capacity as your National President. Pauline, you have the floor.
Thank you, Craig. Before I put on my National Secretary hat, I want to go back to PAC just for 1 second to remind those who do give through payroll deduction that we have entered your tickets into the raffle, and so you are covered. So don't worry about that, but you still can buy tickets. Okay. With my National Secretary hat back on again, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce the candidates for the 2 open offices that we have for election this year. And those are for the National Vice President and also for the National Secretary. For the National Vice President, we have the incumbent Ron Graga and Chris Lombardi, the Region 1 Director. And for National Treasurer, we have the incumbent Christine Parker and Bill Schweitzer, who's from Chapter 186. We look forward to hearing from these 4 candidates, and you'll hear from them shortly. And again, tomorrow you'll be able to have an opportunity to ask them questions. I'm sure there will be a lively debate. Now, Christine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pauline. Hi, I hope everybody is having a good time, can hear everything, see everything, understand what we're saying. I'm really proud of us for having been able to pull this off this year. I'm your National Treasurer. I want to let you know that the financial reports were actually uploaded to the FMA website. You'll find them at Download Central, which is part of the events tab. When you go to the National Convention for this year, there's a Download Central toward the bottom of the page. Click there and you can see all the budget documents. You should see the profit and loss as of January of this year, the budget versus actual, and the balance sheet. Our FY 2020 budget actually ended on a positive note and very healthy in the green. Our FY 2021 looked a little dismal in the beginning. However, there were some silver linings to having a virtual convention. this year's budget looks good for the most part, and we're in the green now. Mostly convention fees when they're in person are paid by attendees paying a registration fee for the day-to-day operations of the National Convention. However, there are some expenses that are traditionally part of the national budget that are not passed on through registration fees. Those would be travel for the board, other travel costs and expenses, some of the materials, and other administrative costs. So we, the upside to not being able to meet in person this year is that we save some money at our national level with the budget. FMA also had some COVID-related assistance from the government. One was the small economic injury disaster loan, and we also applied for the Paycheck Protection Program. If the PPP is awarded and we use that as the guideline state for payroll and utilities, which we fully intend to do, then the 1% loan would be forgiven. So that was definitely a good risk to take, to have a little bit of padding, not padding, just a cushion to our budget. We're using them as tools just to assist us to stay fiscally responsible and healthy through this pandemic, because as we've learned in the past year, we don't know what's around the corner from week to week and month to month. So we're just doing our best to stay flexible and be ready. Good news, our building mortgage is paid in full. Several years ago, the board had the foresight to go ahead and purchase the building where the FMA national offices are housed, and that mortgage is currently paid in full as of February 2021. This won't create a windfall for us because we knew it was going to be paid off this year. We planned for it, so that's been incorporated in the budget, but now we have that wonderful asset on our books. Change directions a little bit. I would like to remind all of you that during the 66th National Convention, which was in 2004, Resolution BL-10-04 was adopted, and that states, starting in December 2004, the association will record the CPI each year. The treasurer will calculate what the increase would be annually and advise the chapters. However, a dues increase will actually be proposed every third year. The increase will represent the combined 3 CPI increases. Thus, the chapters will have advance notice of the increase and will only have to deal with payroll deduction adjustments every third year. That's what is actually written into that. That's the statement from the resolution. I did conduct the CPI analysis with Todd at National. We recognized a total increase of 5.6%. Due to the challenges of COVID in the past year-plus time frame, however, the board agreed that we were tabling any conversation of any changes in dues until 2022. So we kicked the can down the road. We felt we could afford to do that, and it was the right thing to do. I would like to remind all chapters that dues are still payable. We still need them to operate. Those that have been working to get your dues paid every quarter, I salute you. Thank you for your diligent efforts. Those who are behind or have gotten behind, please do your best effort to get those caught up. If you have questions or concerns or you need information, LaToria Wilson at the national office can answer those questions for you as far as balances. If you're not getting invoices, let her know. By all means, we all need to work together to try and stay as healthy as possible through the pandemic and beyond. I wanted to just also mention as a side note that the membership summary as of January 2021 and the annual membership summary for 2020 was uploaded to the FMA webpage. Members are the lifeblood of who we are. Without members, we don't have advocacy. We don't have a reason for existing. The bottom line too, the hard bottom line, is that members also translate to dollars through dues. And if we don't have members, we keep losing members, our numbers go down, our budget goes down, and it gets tougher to operate. So just keep all of those in mind, and thank you again very much for being on the call. Over to you, Ron.
So welcome and hello, everybody. My name is Ron Gregg. I'm the current Vice President of FMA. And despite the challenges of the pandemic, our executive board has been working diligently to further FMA's mission and to continue to strengthen FMA programs. I hope you all enjoy the conference and continue to be engaged in FMA activities. Since I was named Vice President approximately 9 months ago, my work has only just begun in this position, but I'll give you some of my accomplishments or the accomplishments so far. I've worked closely with Craig and the executive board. We're currently working on a bylaws update, and I want to thank the work group members for assisting me with this endeavor. They're nearly ready to be submitted to the board, and ideally should be submitted sometime this week. I plan on engaging FMA chairs, agency chairs, to meet quarterly to identify and address issues within each agency. This was something that was done in the past, and it hasn't been done in a long time, and I'm hoping to reinstitute and re-engage the chairs so we can further SSA's mission and really find out what the needs of each agency are as a collective whole. Another thing, membership, and we've mentioned this a few times already. We've discussed and stressed our need for increased membership over the past several years, and we understand that each chapter has its own unique challenges, and we want to help. Let us know how we can help you increase your membership. I want to double down on Chris's challenge for his regional directors, but this is really a challenge for everybody. If everyone recruits, and that by everyone, I don't mean just the chapters or the chapter executive boards, but if every member recruits one person this year, we'll double in size. And we need to embrace this challenge and try to make it happen. Why? Because it keeps FMA relevant and vibrant. We have strength in numbers, more voices potentially on the Hill. It increases our diversity, and when our diversity increases, it increases our ability to learn, adapt, and grow. And that is all I have right now. Craig, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Ron. So this is always one of my favorite times of the year because it is when other passionate FMA members, staff, and officers meet to handle FMA business such as elections, issue briefs, resolutions, approve our budget, share ideas, and network. We then meet with our elected officials and discuss our issue briefs that deal with federal issues. While our elected officials often vote within party lines on most issues, they more often than not come together as bipartisan when it relates to federal issues, and FMA has a lot to do with that. While a lot of the country was at least partially shut down over the last year, federal employees have continued to provide the services we were sworn to deliver. We continue to provide maintenance on ships and submarines, planes, and other military equipment for the security of our country. We continue to provide food inspections, Homeland Security, Internal Revenue Services, and countless others that our country depends on. We have definitely had to adapt on how we provide these services, but we have continued to thrive in our duties to the best of our abilities, given the situation. While most chapters haven't been able to hold in-person meetings, hopefully you are still having teleconferences or virtual meetings. The national staff has made Zoom possible for chapter membership meetings and chapter executive board meetings. The national staff and executive board continue to meet every month. We're working harder than ever for the great members of this association and all civil servants and retirees. Todd, Greg, and I have had several meetings with the Office of Personnel Management over the last several months. We had a meeting last Tuesday, and we have another scheduled meeting with OPM and ONB this Tuesday. We were also invited by one of the deputy directors of OPM, Tim Curry, to be briefed along with other associations and unions by the CDC, GSA, ONB, and several White House staff on Executive Order 13991 on dealing with the pandemic while on federal property. We've also participated in several meetings with the Thrift Savings Board which we are a member of the Advisory Council. We also had a membership drive in the fall that was sponsored by one of our corporate partners, GPIS, that was very successful, where we recruited quite a few new members into the FMA family. Now is the perfect time, as many of us are returning from telework, to start thinking about chapter membership drives to strengthen your chapters and FMA as a whole. Thank you for your continued support of FMA, and I appreciate you taking time out to join our virtual conference. Now I would like to introduce FMA National President Emeritus Pat Niehaus. Pat serves as the FMA Nominations Committee Chair. Pat, you have the floor.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. So I wanted to give you a brief description of what we're going to do for our election as your nomination chair. We're going to hear from 2 nominees for vice president and 2 nominees for treasurer. They will briefly introduce themselves. Our bylaws permit them to have up to 5 minutes each to give us a brief introduction. And then tomorrow they'll do Q&As for you before the election. So if you have questions, please forward them to Todd Wells at twells@fedmanagers.org, or you can type them into the Q&A session of the Zoom program anytime before the Q&A session begins tomorrow. So we'll begin with Ron Greiga for the Office of National President. Ron, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pat. Greetings again, everybody. I am humbled and most appreciative of the support I've received so far in my current tenure as the FMA Vice President and in my previous roles as FMA Treasurer and formerly as the Region 1 Director. I've spent about 10 years on the Executive Board approximately. Every year it seems to get better and better. And I am humbled and most appreciative of the support, as I mentioned already. While I've only been in my new role 9 months, again, I feel like my job has only just begun. I'm committed to working with the Executive Board, with Craig, and each of you to further our mission. And I really mean that. Working with each of you will help engage not only me more, our Executive Board more, you more, and further strengthen our FMA mission and programs. So I do, as I mentioned, have extensive experience on the Executive Board, but I've also been the SSA Chair for FMA for the last 10 plus years. I've been our chapter president for approximately 8 years. Prior to that, I was our executive officer, and I can continue to leverage my experience with FMA and my 20 plus years as a manager for the betterment of FMA and for all government employees and managers. As I stated a few minutes ago in my vice president message, I've worked to improve the bylaws, and you'll see those in the near future. I want to implement quarterly calls with our agency chairs to, again, work with each agency, find out what their issues are, what their strengths are, how we could share them, how we can eliminate these any weaknesses you have, and work together to strengthen each other, collaborate, and move us forward even more. I mentioned earlier I want to have a membership challenge, and I doubled down on Chris's challenge with each regional member, each regional director of trying to see who recruits the most. But I really mean this. I would like to have every president go back to their chapter and send a strong message of trying to recruit at least one manager per person this year, and we will truly double in size, which will help strengthen us and improve our message and give us more bodies on the hill, frankly, which will help not only federal managers, but all federal employees. In addition, I really would like to start some sort of mentoring program. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about it for the last couple of weeks. And I think this would be something that would work well as we begin to recruit new members, where we can engage our new members, not only have a meeting with them, new members, like maybe once a month, have a brief conference call with all the new members from the national office, or even me as the vice president, and get them involved, get them engaged, explain to them how FMA works, and then ideally appoint a mentor for that particular person so they could navigate FMA waters and help further their career as well. So creating the mentoring program could help them learn and grow as managers and future leaders of FMA and their agencies, and et cetera. So again, I don't have anything else that I want to share at this time. Thank you again for all your support. I wish Chris luck in this election, and please vote for me. Thank you. We'll turn to, go ahead, Pat.
Thank you, Ron. Our other candidate for the office of National Vice President is Chris Lombardi. So Chris, the floor is yours for your statement.
Thank you, Pat. And Ron, start off, I want to say wish you luck as well. And you've been doing a great job in the past 9 months as the interim vice president. And either way it goes, whether it's me or him, I think we're going to have a great team on the executive board. But I want to first start off by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to actually be run for vice president. I've been a member probably about 10, 12 years now, I believe it is. And I got involved very young, wasn't really sure what FMA actually did. I got involved with it and was lucky enough to come to DC and saw what we actually do as a national level. At that point, my passion was FMA all the way and saw what we did as a whole and how strong our voice can actually be. At that point, I ran for board member at our local chapter, and I've been the sergeant at arms first, and then shortly after that became vice president. And I think I've been the vice president now for about 6 years, and also the Regional 1 director for at the national level. What I bring to the table is different views, different aspects. I think I have a open ideas. I'm willing to try new things to get membership or just anything in general. I'm also willing to try some of the old things again. It's kind of like the wardrobe nowadays. You know, a lot of stuff that went out of times, you know, years ago is back in now, and I'd be willing to also try to do something along that lines with some stuff that we tried may not have worked. Maybe let's just improve it. So I'm willing to, you know, take advice from other people. I listen to others. I'd like to get more interaction with some of the chapters in the areas, and all the chapters, and hear from local members. I feel that the local members don't get their voices heard as much. So I'd like to change that. Just in, you know, by listening to them, they have ideas as well as we do for all kinds of stuff. And in the world of COVID right now, we need to try different things. We're doing a Zoom conference right now. Would never think we'd be doing this right now. As much as I would love to see everybody's smiling face at the national conference in person, this will do for now. Hopefully next year we'll be in person. So again, I'd like to have the opportunity to show what I can do as vice president. And like Ron said, good luck, Ron, and have a good day. Thank you. Pat, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris, for your statement. Now we're going to hear from our two treasurer candidates. First, we'll hear from Christine Parker. So Christine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pat. Hello, everybody again. I've been your treasurer for almost about a half a year now, and I'm thoroughly enjoying the task. It was something I had to think about and pray about because I really wasn't sure what was involved. And now that I'm in it, I can't believe I ever had any doubts. It's amazing. Great team. I love the work of what's involved with it. I do have high aspirations for FMA and our future fiscal outlook. I do have experience in all aspects of FMA. I've served as secretary, vice president, and president at chapter level, and I was also the national secretary for FMA for 5 years. I have over 32 years of solid federal experience in the area of funds administration, all kinds of funds, non-appropriated, appropriated, fenced, you know, O&M, just the gamut, as well as experience in human resources and management areas. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Management or Business Administration and a Master of Science from Mercer University here in Georgia, where I reside. We've seen some bumps in the road with our budget and with where we're heading. No reflection on past treasurers by any means. It is what it is. Life happens, stuff happens, things go on. But we have made significant strides recently, and I'm very proud to be a part of FMA because of that. I want to see us even take it to higher levels in the out years and grow even more in the out years. I'd love to be able to continue to pursue the positive financial direction that we found of FMA that would include being good stewards of our money, of our funds, and to seek opportunities for continuing a healthy organization in all aspects of resources. I don't have anything else to add. I appreciate your time and good luck to you, Bill. I see that you've stepped into the candidacy, and I'm glad to see that people are getting more interested and getting more involved. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Christine. And our next candidate for the office of treasurer will be Bill Schweitzer, and he will give us his presentation now. So Bill, the floor is yours.
Bill, you're on mute. Bill, you're on mute.
Bill, you're on mute. Bill, if you could unmute your presentation, then everybody can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks.
Yeah, it was on the wrong microphone. Sorry about that. And thank you, Christine, for the kind words. I appreciate that. And the reason I'm putting my hat in the ring was something going back to what Pam Coleman said earlier. Is feeling the stress of a federal worker as a federal manager over the last few years. There's a lot of stress that's been out there publicly and politically and everything, and really feeling the need to put my hat in the ring and try to do something about it. I just feel that, the FMA seems like a great platform to be able to help out and get that vehicle to get some of the managers' concerns in front of our elected officials so that we can, get some protections in place or keep the protections we have from being taken from us. What was surprising to me upon becoming a manager and then learning what the FMA was I really had to seek it out and find out how to join, and then through multiple efforts do it. So to hear all the candidates speak about increasing membership and stuff like that, I think that's a definite need. I think there's some communication that needs to get down to that manager the first that they're in their new office and outside the bargaining unit. They're in a management position, and nobody knows what FMA is or where it's coming from. You don't really hear it. So there's communication that there probably could be increased somewhere along the line. And I have some experience that when I was within the Secretary Treasurer as a union, I did a lot of recruiting and increasing membership for the local that I worked for. Did a lot of interactions with multiple national offices and collecting dues and putting them forward and coming up with strategies and incentives to increase membership. So I think that's something that's needed here, and I think that's something that I could be useful for. Back to you, Pat. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Okay. This concludes our statements from the candidates for national office positions. and we'll hear from them again tomorrow during the candidate Q&A. So once again, I want to remind you, please forward your questions to Todd Wells at twells@fedmanager.org, or use the Q&A section of the Zoom program anytime before the Q&A begins tomorrow. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then Greg Stanford will be back with the Government Affairs report. Thank you all.
Discover how to make your life easier with mail order prescriptions.
La 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 la. La 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 la.
Urgent care can be less expensive than the ER.
Michael, are you okay?
Get a doctor's help at any hour. Find out what vaccinations are covered under your plan. Find the perfect doctor for you with our Doctor Finder tool. Find out what care will cost before you go to the doctor.
I'll be checking your health as we shop. Let's roll. It's a little higher than average. How are you?
Oh, it's counting my steps. It's an odometer.
This is your heart rate?
That's my heartbeat.
My blood oxygen's only 90.
Don't forget to get your annual wellness visit.
It was fun.
Retirement is on the horizon. You're almost there. But ask yourself a question. Do I have enough money to retire? And how much will I need to maintain my lifestyle? Do I know all the benefits available to me? What about my health and life insurance options? What if I wanted to work again? Here at GPIS Employee Benefits Specialists, we have the knowledge, experience, and tools to help answer these questions. We offer free consultation, which includes a complete breakdown of your federal benefits now and what your benefits will be in retirement. We can show you how to maximize your retirement income with safety, security, and growth opportunity. Please contact us and make your road to retirement truly the golden years.
In today's world, planning is essential. People are living longer and need a long-range care plan that can sustain them throughout their lifetime. The Federal Long-Term Care Insurance Program, or FLTCIP, can help. With benefits designed specifically for the federal family, the FLTCIP can help protect your savings and assets in the event you or your loved ones ever need long-term care. The FLTCIP helps pay for long-term care services in a variety of settings with your choice of caregiver. The FLTCIP is available to eligible federal and U.S. Postal Service employees and annuitants, active and retired uniformed service members, and certain qualified relatives. Visit LTCFeds.com for the full eligibility listing. The FLTCIP is a medically underwritten benefit. Certain medical conditions or combinations of conditions will prevent some people from being approved for coverage. To learn more about the FLTCIP, visit LTCFeds.com or call us to speak to a program consultant.
Welcome back from the break. We are now going to have our government affairs report and a Q&A section at the end. So please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions that you have for Greg Stanford. Now, without further ado, for those who do not know him, I would like to introduce our Government and Public Affairs Director, Greg Stanford. He's the expert who knows everyone on Capitol Hill, knows the ins and outs of all the legislation that affects federal managers, and is essentially our Sherpa for Capitol Hill. Greg, the floor is yours.
Nice, thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. First of all, I know I was having some volume issues earlier. Adam, can you give me a thumbs up? Am I coming through loud enough?
Yeah, loud enough.
Okay, very good. I'll see if I can move closer here. So my daughter just gave me a pro tip. She said, make sure you unmute. And she's in virtual school, and she has to, every once in a while, remind her teacher to unmute. She's in 3rd grade. Some of you all may recall several years ago, same daughter who wandered in behind me when I was giving a government affairs report for the Region 3 and 4 conference in San Diego. So it's funny to see how things have come, but I think that's really an illustration of what our world looks like with my 3rd grader and my kindergartner both doing school from home on their computers. I'll say it's been really neat to see all of the familiar faces, and it saddens me a little to only see names over on the participant list, but I'm so gratified to see a lot of familiar friends, Andy Anderson and James Kappa and Judge Stolley and Glenn Todd and Kimberly Price, Melissa Lamerson's, Pat Niehaus. It's so great to see all of you, but it's also so good to see a lot of names that I'm not familiar with, who I haven't had the opportunity and the blessing to meet yet. And like others have said throughout the day's events already, sure hope that we can do it in person next year. But I'm so glad that we're doing this. And I'm thinking right now of Gene Wilder in Willy Wonka. He says that classic line, "We have so much time and so little to see." wait a minute, strike that, reverse it. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and let's get into the presentation. Adam, can you give me a thumbs up if the presentation's coming through? Perfect. Thank you very much. And so welcome everybody. It's great to see so many folks that have taken the time out of your Sunday to join us today, and glad to be here. And I'm seeing that. Okay, there we go. So let's jump to it. So I'm Greg Stanford. For those who don't know, I'm the Director of Government and Public Affairs for FMA. I've been here almost 9 years, and it's been my privilege, my honor to get to do what I do. And I'll jump right into FMA Government Affairs and Public Affairs. What does success look like, and how do we define it in government affairs? Using my friends at Schoolhouse Rock to say sometimes it's getting legislation passed, a la the creating disabled veteran leave several years ago, or some of the successes that I'll go through in a couple of future slides. But it can be making sure that bad legislation does not get passed, and we've seen we've seen our fair amount of that, and that comes from both sides of the aisle. One of the refrains that you'll hear often from all of us in the national office and the executive board is that FMA is proudly nonpartisan, and that shines through, I think, from our PAC giving, but also our government affairs outreach. And I think Craig said it very well. It's not just our work on the Hill of getting bills passed or bad bills killed, but it's also the admin outreach. And Craig spoke eloquently about some of the work that we've been able to continue to do during the past year of dealing with COVID. But you see that with our keynote speakers of getting our relationship with OMB and getting to hear from Pam and Dustin Brown at OMB. And as Craig mentioned, last week we met with, Craig, Todd, and I met with Margot Conrad. She's a senior advisor to the director at OPM and also the executive director of the Chico Council. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, last week, FMA, Craig put out a press release endorsing the nomination of Kieran Ahuja as director of OPM. And on Friday night, Craig heard personally back from the director, from the nominee for OPM director, heard back from her Gmail, her personal Gmail account. And I think that's a good illustration of the FMA's clout in the administration. We're looking forward to the confirmation process for the OPM director, and we'll certainly be in touch with you all on where things go with OPM. I did want to hop in, as Dustin Brown said, last year was a tough year. And Bill Schweitzer actually, spoke to that as well, of the stress that the last couple of years, but last year especially. And so when we look at what 2020, calendar 2020 was like, it's not fun to be able to say that, success was preventing a shutdown, but as Dustin Brown said, it's been more than 25 years since since Congress has been able to provide full funding to all agencies at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we call it a success that we were able to avert a shutdown. We also call it a success that we were able to preserve or maintain that 1% pay raise. As you know, in November of last year, the Senate had a proposal to have a pay freeze for 2021, and we were able to stave that off and keep that 1%. I'll talk a little bit more in the presentation about how things are looking, and I'll elaborate a little bit more on it, but FMA is supporting a 3.2% pay raise for 2022. We'll talk a little bit about that later in my presentation, and also tomorrow when we talk about the issue briefs and how to best practices on contacting legislators, whether you're getting them via phone, getting them on a Zoom or a Teams meeting, or when possible to do in-person meeting in the district. We'll certainly talk about that more tomorrow night. But some other successes we had, you know, Peggy Hatcher talked about the annual leave, and Linda as well, of trying to protect the annual leave. We started working with legislators going back to May of last year, and we were ultimately successful in protecting annual leave, allowing feds to carry more time over into 21. That would have been, the normal cap would have been 240 hours. And in the FY 2021 NDAA, they boosted that by 125%, so that you're able to carry 300 hours into of time. So 7.5 days that you would have had to forfeit, that is you have to use in this calendar year though. But also in last year's NDAA, we extended paid parental leave to feds who were left out in the FY 20 NDAA. Also extended combat zone tax parity, which was a long time FMA issue brief, extended that by another year, and new direct hire authorities at DOD. So it was a handful of what we were able to get done in 2020. You know, we have a track record of successes, and I won't spend too much time on this. There is a sheet. Christine talked about the Download Central on the website, and we try to tout these as much as possible. But you know, times have been tough, and so we celebrate that we were able to avert a pay freeze the last 3 years, whether it was included in the administration's budget request, or as in this past year, the administration proposed a 1%, but then the U.S. Senate came in towards the end of the year and tried to get a pay freeze for 2021, and we were able to prevent that. I talked about the protecting of annual leave, and we'll talk a little bit more about some other protections that we're trying to get done to restore disabled veteran leave, for example. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow night when we talk about the issue briefs. I think many of you already know about the FERS sick leave credit, and FMA was the lead behind that, of getting that done. And then for my DOD friends, the repeal of the long-term TDY per diem cuts. That was something that we worked on for 4 years, but we were ultimately successful in getting that done. You know, when we talk about killing legislation, or legislation that doesn't get signed into law because it's just bad, and it's bad for federal managers, it's bad for all of the federal workforce, that can sometimes be hard to quantify, but we've been proud of our track record to this point of this top bullet on the slide that you're currently looking at, of preventing a lot of those cuts to health and retirement benefits, whether it's increases to pension contributions 1% a year for the next 6 years, that would impact not just new hires, but that could conceivably impact you all of current federal managers in the workforce, and we've been able to prevent that to this point. But we've also seen things like high 3 to high 5 and eliminating the FERS annuity supplement, or eliminating the FERS COLA, or reducing the CSRS COLA. Those types of things have been pushed in Congress and the administration in recent years, and we've been able to stop them. We were able to add new locality pay areas that benefited my friends in Virginia Beach, Norfolk. So Chapter 3 benefited from that, and across the country, we were able to get several of those done. And that was something that had been sitting on the desk of the Salary Council. The Federal Salary Council had made these recommendations for years, and it just couldn't get over the goal line. We were able to work with Senators Warner and Kane and others across the U.S. Senate to get those done. Paid parental leave we talked about, so that took effect October 1 of last year, and we were proud to support that for paid parental leave of 12 weeks of coverage now. Some others, and you'll see on my font on these next couple of slides gets a little smaller because we have a lot of successes over the years. But disabled veteran leave, that was all thanks to Sue Thatch, Chapter 21, and our efforts that led to the creation. Pat Niehaus and I sat in an office with Congressman Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts and wrote the bill in his office, and it was so cool to do that. The Wounded Warriors Federal Leave Act. But some other things, allowing feds in the reserves the opportunity to enroll in a health plan of their choice, meaning TRICARE Reserve Select. We got that done. That was an FMA issue brief. That came out of Chapter 125, David Flores from Corpus Christi. And we were happy to work with him. Protecting the 2-year probationary period at DOD, that's something that in 2019, there was a push to reduce the probationary period at DOD back to 1 year, and we were able to maintain the 2-year probationary period, and instead called for a study that's required from the Pentagon, and we call that a success. We're trying to work on the probationary period and get that DOD model across the rest of the federal workforce. So that's something that we'll talk about a little bit tomorrow night when we talk about the issue briefs. Again, FEHB Self+1 got that done several years ago in the 113th Congress. But again, we talked about the combat zone tax parity, extending disabled veteran leave to FAA and VA employees, but then other things, phase retirement, reemployed annuitants, and other locality pay extensions for our friends in Alaska, Hawaii, and Glenn Todd, and Melissa Lamerson, and Alan Couture. I see you, and I'm sure there are others, but I know you are all here with us tonight. So thank you, aloha, and thank you for your time. So wanted to jump to this slide, and I'll tell you, this slide is the crux of what I want to talk about tonight, because this really talks about how we do what we do, and some of there was a good question posed to Dustin and Pam earlier tonight about how can managers make a difference, and several folks on the board and Dustin as well have alluded to strength in numbers, and I think this is where the rubber meets the road on that. So you all taking time out of your Sunday, and hopefully you'll come back for tomorrow to be here and to be part of this. That's a big deal, and that's I think you're all part of that FMA choir, and I think that strength in numbers of taking that message And that's how we take it to the Hill and take it to the administration. So keeping yourself informed, we work to update the FMA website every day. Adam, Todd, and I are on that. Latoria's on it every day, trying to make it a good user-friendly experience for all members, but also to keep you informed. The Washington Report is our monthly newsletter that we put out. That goes to your non-government and your preferred email. The grassroots newsletter you should have received this past week. That's also a monthly message that goes out from the national office. That only goes to your non-government email address because we don't want you to get in trouble with the Hatch Act. We want you to keep your jobs. And so thank you for making sure that we have your best non-government email address on file so that we can get you that, so that we can talk about PAC things, so that we can talk about action letters and some of those political things that we're doing on the Hill to try to move the needle on our issues. Chapter meetings, I can tell you that I've had the pleasure of joining many chapters over the years. Chapter 3, I've joined and gone in person, but I can also join and do something like this and patch in for 15 minutes on the telephone to give you a legislative update, or if you're doing something with Teams or Zoom, I'm happy to join that. I've been talking with Chapter 3 about joining their Zoom, but Chapter 19 and Chapter 11, Chapter 14 are just a handful of the chapters that I've been able to do a legislative update and answer questions. And so that's another way of keeping informed. And then I'd like to give a shout to Adam Kay for all of his work in putting this together tonight and tomorrow. But also he's on the beat for our Facebook and Twitter, and we've really tried to up our engagement on that in social media, and that's another way of staying informed. So how do we make a difference? Again, strengthen numbers. And so what I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking about tonight is talking about action letters and FMA-PAC. We're off to a fast start in the 117th Congress. There's been legislation introduced, the FAIR Act, as I mentioned, that would provide a 3.2% pay raise in 2022. It would be a 2.2% boost to base pay and a 1% boost to locality pay. But then the Equal COLA Act has been introduced, and that would bring a measure of fairness for FERS employees when it comes to COLAs. The Social Security Fairness Act has been introduced. It was introduced on the first day when the 117th Congress was sworn in, and that would repeal the government pension offset and the windfall elimination provision. And then also we are working, I understand it's pending, for a smaller bill that's targeted at changing the calculations for the WEP. And there's legislation that is pending introduction on that. FMA will support that. But so how do we show that support? There's a couple of ways, and I'll hover over just real briefly. Vince spoke about in-district meetings and talked about phone calls, Zoom. One of my sessions tomorrow night is going to be do's and don'ts, best practices. Yes, you can still work with your legislators over email and phone calls and Zooms. Linda talked about some of their successes in Region 2, and I can tell you candidly, I haven't had a Hill meeting of walking the halls of the Longworth House Office Building since last March, and so that's how I'm working with legislators too. So for FMA members, let's talk about it. One of your big resources is our Legislative Action Center, and you can find that on our website. one of the key tools there in the Legislative Action Center is the Legislative Tracker. And so that's fedmanagers.org/legislative tracker. And there we keep a listing of bills that we're familiar with that and we can take a position. We can give a thumbs up if we support it, a thumbs down if there's a bill that we're interested in, but we're interested in because we oppose it. That's a way that you can find that. Or there's also a feature that just says that, hey, we're monitoring this bill. So check out the Legislative Tracker, and if there's a bill that's not on the tracker, please let us know. You know, we're a small shop. There's 4 of us in the national office, and we do our best to stay informed and to do our jobs. But you can help us help you by letting us know if there's a bill that of interest that's going to impact members. And you don't see it on the tracker, let us know, and we'll take a look and we'll put it up there. Wanted to highlight then action letters, and this is a way that everybody can get involved. It takes literally a couple of minutes, and if you've done an action letter before, it takes you a couple of seconds, because once you've done one and you've put in your information, all you have to do is, or it'll remember you, and you type in your zip code, it'll bring up. We have action letters in the field and active right now. One on the FAIR Act, and the letter right now, I will say, is specific to the House, because at the time that I created the presentation and the last I saw the action letters page, only the House bill had been introduced at that point. On Friday, the Senate version, Senator Schatz from Hawaii introduced the Senate companion bill. And so one of the first things I'm going to do tomorrow is add that to the action letters page. But there's also an action letter on the Equal COLA Act and on the Social Security Fairness Act. They're all up. What we do, we only send these to a non-government email address. We draft the text for you, but we make the text editable. So you can go in and we encourage you to put in your own experiences and your own anecdotes of how this impacts you directly. I can speak from experience, having worked on Capitol Hill prior to coming to Congress. And again, this is something that Dustin Brown talked about, of the strength in numbers. But one of my jobs when I worked for Congressman Walden was to be the correspondence manager, and I tracked all the letters that we got to our office. And for my congressman, on every Friday, I submitted a report to him on the issues that we had received letters on, and the status if they had received a response yet. And the number of letters that we've gotten. And so certainly the congressman was interested if he got 1 or 2 letters on an issue. He wanted to know what his constituents were thinking, but it really got his attention when 200 letters would come in. It was, you know, the ears would perk up and, whoa, okay, we need to do something on this. And that's just something that, you know, I think FMA can use action letters to really hit members across the country and hit on those sorts of things. And they really do make a difference. And again, once you've done one, the system remembers you, and it makes it very easy for you to do the next one. It'll remember you, and it's ready to send, and you're ready to go. I know that I'm the last thing between the last primary presentation of the day, and I'm the last thing standing between now and the social hour. So I will bring this around to a close. And but I do want to echo and talk a little bit about PAC. I can tell you that Pauline Coleman-Sutton is just a joy, you know, just a real blessing to work with, and I love her passion. She spoke very eloquently earlier today about what the PAC is, what it does, why it's important, and you know, about building those relationships and how we get things done. And we want to make sure that friends of FMA come back to Washington, D.C., friends of Feds. And Pauline spoke about payroll deduction, and yes, absolutely payroll deduction. If you've contributed via payroll deduction in the last year, you are entered in the drawing that's coming up tomorrow. But PAC is really just the way that gives FMA the red carpet, right? And while I'm at it, I saw that Leonard Liu is with us tonight. And again, you know, it's so fun to see those familiar faces, Leonard and Andy Anderson, and who've been such good stewards and contributors to PAC over the years, and Pat Niehaus, obviously, and many others. But it's so great to see the former PAC chairman, Leonard Liu, on today. But PAC really does get us the red carpet. And it's one of those things where you help us and and PAC can help you. It's not just me or Adam or Todd who can attend these events. Particularly now when most of the events that are out there are via Zoom. And so I would say that if you have an interest in attending a fundraiser on behalf of a member, please let me know. We're happy to work with you and see if we can make that happen. I know that my friends in Hawaii have gone to events in Hawaii for Ed Case and for Brian Schatz. Chapter 6 is always very, very active, going to see folks like Susan Collins and others up there. Pat Niehaus seeing John Garamendi in California. And so if you have interest, we can do that. Jason Wadillo, I know you're on from the U.S. Marshal Service chapter 373. And so thank you for being here. I can single Jason out of an example of an FMA member who works very hard on the legislative side and works with members of Congress. And then we work kind of in tandem, tag team. And so then FMA-PAC supported Senator Chuck Grassley, who Jason Wadillo has a relationship with. And it really just is one of those things that when we work together, we can really make some good things happen. What you're seeing on your screen now, this is a year ago in Norfolk. We had a meeting, a fundraiser, and the only folks at this event were FMA members. It was FMA Chapter 3, myself, the handsome man standing next to Chops there, and Congressman Rob Whitman. And it was just FMA Chapter 3 members and Congressman Whitman for an hour and a half talking about FMA and shipyard issues, again, because it was Chapter 3. And that's the sort of thing that building relationships, and FMA-PAC is one of the greatest vehicles for doing that. So thank you all. Again, as Pauline said, you've been very generous as always, and thank you in these crazy times. But the show definitely goes on, and that's one of the things that can happen. Pauline spoke about the grand prize and some of those other cash prizes, and the region managers talked about the salmon from the Pacific Northwest and the Maine lobster and awesome prizes from across the country. This is always one of my favorite times of National Convention is, you know, what are those prizes that the chapters so generously donate? And it's so cool to see that come through, even in these times of COVID and a Zoom convention. As Pauline said, there is time, and you probably received several emails from Adam about the drawing that we're going to do tomorrow night. But I'll just say again, so it's that go.rallyup.org facebook.com/FMA. Check your email, your non-government email, and or copy that address, and that's how you can get involved. But again, if you've contributed via payroll deduction, you're accounted for. You've got tickets, and so we're happy to do that. As you know, we're always around. Please don't hesitate to shoot myself or Adam an email, or call the national office. If you punch enough buttons when you call the national office and you call my line, it'll come through to my my cell phone. And so certainly happy to chat with you on the phone about any issues. Tomorrow night, please come back for the issue brief discussion and the best practices on meeting with legislators via Zoom or phone or Teams or just email, and come with your questions. And now I will just talk. I'll address any questions that have come in, questions, comments, praise. I welcome all of it, and thank you all for your time.
All right, Greg, our first question is, what policy area are you most optimistic about in this Congress, and what are you most concerned about?
It's a great question. I would say, you know, on pay and benefits, that's probably the first thing that jumps out at me. In January, I did a Zoom lunch with Congressman Steny Hoyer from Maryland. He's the majority leader, and I was the only federal presence on that event, meaning that, you know, we do some Fed postal events that include folks from you know, certainly FMA and the other management groups, but it also includes my counterparts at AFGE and NTEU and IFPTE, and you know, and a lot of the federal unions, and we work together on, you know, more often than not on issues, and we go to a lot of the same events. This particular event with the House Majority Leader, I was the only federal presence on it. And when I got my chance to speak, before I could speak, Mr. Hoyer said, you know, hey, Greg, glad to have FMA here, and here's what I know. And he said that the House was going to be really pushing that the FAIR Act. Again, that's the 3.2% pay raise for 2022. They're going to really push that, and those protections to benefits. So that's the first thing that I think that I've heard from legislators in both the House and the Senate, as well as the administration. I've had some initial conversations with the administration on protecting pay and benefits. So I think that's one of the areas that I'm you know, that I'm optimistic about. I think telework is another area where I'm optimistic. That, you know, there was legislation, and we can talk a little bit more in detail about that tomorrow. But there was bipartisan legislation introduced in the Senate in the last Congress, and that takes a look at telework. Not just in this time of COVID, but also forward-looking. You know, we've all had to adapt in these crazy times, and you know, obviously there are a lot of positions where telework just is not an option. You know, we like to say that you can't turn a wrench on the deck of an aircraft carrier from your computer at your home office, right? But where you can do telework, I think that's an area where I'm optimistic, working with Congress and also the administration on making sure that managers get training. And that's a requirement. That's something that we brought up with OPM last week, of making sure managers are getting that training on best practices and how to effectively manage employees via telework. But I'm optimistic about that. I think one area where, you know, so there are a couple that I think are going to be challenging. I think, so shifting gears on the challenge to answer the second part of that question, you know, I think the things that cost a lot of money are still going to be challenging. For instance, repeal of GPO and WEP, CBO estimates that anywhere from $8 to $10 billion with a B per year. And so that's very expensive. And how are you going to pay for that? So that, you know, anything like that that's going to cost a lot of money. I think that's going to be a challenge. And then I spoke a little about the probationary period. That DoD has the 2-year probationary period. I think with the current makeup of the Congress, I think that's a concern. Just because in 2019, there was language in the House passed version of the NDAA that would have shifted DoD back to a 1-year probationary period, and it took a large lift on our part, working with senators to get that out, to maintain that 2-year probationary period, and to require a Pentagon study instead. And so I think that would be another issue that could be a challenge in the 117th Congress, but we'll certainly do what we can.
Awesome. All right, we have a few questions still in the chat, and we only have time for one last one, but we will be saving these and addressing them tomorrow. So our last question for the evening is, has FMA tried to pursue issues via an administrative executive order versus only working with Congress to pass legislation, which can take years?
So yes, absolutely. I mean, we are always multifaceted in our approach, and doing work contemporaneously with the administration, working with folks in Dustin Brown's office, and Pam, in addition to our work on the Hill, because even those best ideas like the Wounded Warriors Federal Leave Act, that we learned of the issue, or it was raised as an issue in 2012, and it took 3 years to get that done, and that was kind of a no-brainer. The average I've heard is anywhere from 6 to 8 years is actually more normal on legislation. So yes, we absolutely do work with the administration. That meeting that Craig and Todd and I had with OPM was one leg of that, of working with the director, the OPM director's office, on what we can do. There were proposed rules that FMA submitted 5 pages of comments to, related to the probationary period and dealing with poor performers, and that FMA supported, and those are now on hold with the new administration, with one of the EOs that President Biden put out on the day after he was sworn in. But I think one area, again, just to cite a specific reference, I think one potential area would be working with FMA Chapter 373 and Jason Wodillo and the U.S. Marshals Service on an issue regarding hiring practices there. I think that's one avenue that I think we're going to pursue, and certainly we will pursue others as they are available. And to whoever posed that question, happy to work with you and have a dialogue and see what might be possible.